If you're wanting the absolute best deal on a new or used car, then you should wait to buy. And in this video, I'm going to go over some of the key reasons as to why. Now, I want to preface this by saying in the last 6 months or so, I definitely have been in the camp that right now in the current car market, it absolutely isn't the worst time to buy a used or new car. And I stand by that viewpoint despite high interest rates, dealership delusion, and high car prices. Even today, you can find deals that make sense. Like this Tesla I just bought for $4,000 below market value, the Lincoln Navigator I bought a few months ago with an interest rate of 6.5%, well above the industry average, or the nearly dozen vehicles that I've purchased in the last year. There are good deals to be had in this current car market. You just have to be patient, educated in what you want to buy, and you have to be prepared to pounce on a deal whenever it presents itself, because in this car market, good deals don't stick around for long. But there are currently a few key factors at play that mean that in the next few months, it could in fact be a much better time to buy a new or used car. And if you wait these next few months, you may be able to get a much better deal. And the first of these factors is tax returns and tax refunds. Believe it or not, tax returns and refunds have a big impact on the overall car market because it increases demand in certain segments of vehicles. If you're looking to buy a very high-end luxury car that has a high price, this isn't so much of an issue. But if you're looking for your everyday average vehicle, or alternatively, if you're looking for cash cars, this can have a massive impact overall. Tax refunds send more money into people's pockets, and people use this money in order to buy or at least help buy a used or new vehicle purchase. In fact, Cox Automotive recently released a report within the last month, and in this report it outlined that tax refunds are 6% higher year over year, and while only 46% of refunds have been processed as of mid-March, the average refund is currently $3,109. And similar to the trend that we saw during the pandemic with stimulus checks, when people get extra money into their pocket, they do tend to spend that on things like cars. And for this reason, if you are somebody who's looking for the best deal possible, I would recommend waiting until tax season is over with. This is especially true given the fact that we are getting very, very close to the end of tax season, so you really don't have to wait that long. Another reason why I think that you should wait to buy a car is the reality of the current inventory situation. The truth is that dealerships are on the cusp of a major problem if they don't begin to sell more cars. And sure, while dealerships are selling cars and the overall car market as a whole definitely isn't terrible, the outlook definitely doesn't look good either. New vehicle prices are down 5% from a year ago, which is great news, but inventory levels are way up. In fact, there are currently 940,000 more units available to buy today compared to this time last year. And overall, vehicle inventory is at a 73-day supply, which is a 30% increase from last year. Granted, some brands have different inventory than others, but overall, the majority of major brands do have more inventory than the average. And the reason why this matters and why it is bad news for dealerships as a whole is because I recently made a video talking about how dealership inventory today in 2024 is very similar to what we saw pre-pandemic in 2019. So inventory levels in 2019, where car prices were lower, incentives were higher, and overall the market was favoring the buyer, those inventory levels back then are very, very similar to where they are today. And again, this matters because the inventory problem that we had in 2021 and 2022, where there was incredibly low inventory and extremely high supply, thus driving car prices up. And the fact is, whether dealerships want to admit it or not, this problem simply doesn't exist in the current car market anymore. Dealership inventory is about equal to what we saw in 2019, but vehicle sales are not. You can see a graph here also from Cox Automotive breaking down vehicle sales in the last 5 years. And vehicle sales today in 2024 are quite a bit lower compared to 2019. And sure, there are absolutely economic factors at play here as to why vehicle sales have not recovered despite the fact that vehicle inventory has. Things like interest rates, inflation, economic uncertainty. But we can't ignore the reality that many of these factors that are driving vehicle sales down, or at least preventing them from recovering like they maybe could have, are also self-inflicted by dealerships and automakers. And that self-infliction is high car prices, because while car prices are going down, they definitely aren't going down fast enough. There are still many dealerships that are charging above MSRP, and there are many used dealerships that are charging BS fees. And this is hindering vehicle sales. And this is absolutely affecting bottom line, because dealerships are selling less vehicles today than they were in 2019. Their vehicle inventory is the same, and dealerships are absolutely beginning to feel the burn, because according to a recent report released just the other day, dealership sentiment and outlook is beginning to decline. According to Cox Automotive, sentiment of franchise dealerships is declining when it comes to profit, which means that they acknowledge that their profit has declined and they also expect for it to get worse. Or at the very least, they aren't expecting it to get better. And when asked about why they think these declining profits are occurring, dealerships are basically delusional to the reality, with dealerships blaming interest rates, the economy, or market conditions before they blame what is a major factor: prices. In fact, according to a report released by Deloitte outlining the outlook of the 2024 car market, the number one factor that consumers take into account when deciding what type of vehicle they're going to purchase is purchase price, with 59% of US surveyed individuals saying that price is their number one most important factor. And what's sort of a bit ironic about this entire situation is that while dealership sentiment is declining and overall just doesn't look great, consumer sentiment measured by the University of Michigan jumped to the highest level we've seen since July of 2021, with the Consumer Sentiment Index rising to 79.4. And according to Bloomberg, consumer views about their current personal finances rose to the highest level in over 2 years, while their present outlook for the economy improved to the best since July of 2021. And so relatively speaking, consumers are actually feeling better about the economic outlook and their personal finances today than they have in years past. The reality is, with declining profit and increasing inventory, there is eventually going to become a tipping point where dealerships are going to have no other choice but to lower prices and aggressively increase their incentives. And while incentives absolutely have increased, which is a positive sign, they also haven't returned to their pre-pandemic level either, which really doesn't make a ton of sense. If you've ever driven around dealerships, or if you live around an area where there are plenty of dealerships, you've probably noticed that there's definitely been a shift in the automotive industry. Dealership lots are full. There are a ton of cars to choose from, and yet dealership incentives just haven't returned to where they really should be. Because the dealerships that are still charging above MSRP, or the used dealerships that are charging BS markups, I do believe that these days are extremely limited. And if these dealerships don't start offering incentives and stop overcharging on their own accord, at some point they're going to be forced to. And they're going to be forced to in order to move inventory, because the reality is supply and demand simply doesn't support the price gouging that we're still seeing far too often. And for all of these financial reasons, I believe that it could be a good idea to wait a few months to get that newer used car, because we are already beginning to see dealerships discounting cars, offering incentives, and car prices going down. And I do think that as dealerships begin to be a bit more desperate, and as we head into the summer, dealerships may end up discounting vehicles even more, which could be great for you. And the final reason why I think it could be worth it to wait a few months to buy that used car is just cyclical reasons. Historically, spring and fall are popular times to buy a car, and we are officially in spring. And before we know it, we'll be in summer. And buying a car in the summer, at the end of the second quarter, at the end of June, could be a great way to get a really great discount. And this could be perfect timing given the other situations that I've discussed in this video. At that point, tax season will be well over, and hopefully dealerships would have been squeezed for a few more months, thus being more willing to give more discounts and incentives. And truthfully, if I was buying a car from a dealership, I would probably wait to buy until this time frame, because I think that the pricing could be quite a bit different. And I think that your negotiating power as a buyer becomes a lot stronger as time goes on. But like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it. So make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.